Existing Fence Conversion System Installation by Purrfect Fence. This video will address the most common fencing materials and configurations. Though this video may not address your exact situation, the principles shown in this video are likely to apply. We strongly recommend watching this video in its entirety before beginning your installation. Determine mounting height. For maximum effectiveness, it is important that the finished height of your Purrfect Fence extension be tall enough so your cats cannot leap on top or over it. Note the spring-loaded arm will vertically extend 12 inches above the bracket mounting point. For most domestic cats, the minimum finished height we recommend is 6 feet, though taller is always better and possibly necessary for some larger and/or more capable jumpers. Determine mounting location. The diagram shows a top-down view with the mounting bracket and spring-loaded arm in black. For the best results, it is recommended that you secure the mounting bracket and spring-loaded arm of our system to the fence at the point that the fence reaches furthest into the enclosure. In the examples here, you can see that no matter the type of post shape or position, the mounting bracket is always placed on the plane that reaches furthest into the enclosure area. This same principle applies to vinyl, PVC, chain link, iron, aluminum, block, brick, concrete, and any other structural surface you can secure our system to. Though a consistent plane is preferred for ease of installation, it is not required. Our system is designed to accommodate variations that disrupt a consistent plane, such as different fence types joining together, misaligned posts, and other similar unknowns. As the diagram shows, regardless of the configuration, you should maintain a consistent plane by always positioning the mounting bracket on the structural surface of the fence component that extends furthest into the enclosure area. Ensuring that your mounting brackets are secured to the surface that extends furthest from your fence is recommended. It will allow for easier installation of the mesh fencing material, which will be installed later, and many of the issues with the visual aspects of the finished look can be tracked back to mounting position on the existing fence. The basic anatomy of a fence is shown here. Though your fence may look different, the basic principle of most fencing is the same. It consists of posts, rails, and some type of fence covering. In this diagram, a wood fence is shown with pickets. It is a best practice to secure mounting brackets to the structural components of your fencing. In many situations, this means the fence posts, shown in green. Alternatively, you can secure to the top rail when your fence design features this, shown in yellow. We generally do not recommend securing to pickets or fence covering only unless there is something structural behind it, such as a post or top rail. If your situation requires securing to pickets only, you can add a structural component behind it to ensure it is a durable connection. Mounting examples. There are thousands of possible combinations of fencing materials and designs that exist, including wood, vinyl, composite, iron, aluminum, chain link, brick, block, concrete, and more. The examples shown may not match your specific situation exactly. However, these examples are likely to be similar enough so that you can understand the principles to use when selecting the right mounting position. If in doubt, we are always happy to assist you. Just send photos of the area in question to our support email at help@purrfectfence.com with a description of the problem. Here you can see an example of a split rail wood fence, a solid board fence with a cap, dog ear fencing, chain link fencing, metal and aluminum fencing, block and concrete wall, brick wall. Determine mounting bracket and arm spacing. Spacing between the spring-loaded arms is flexible. Generally speaking, we suggest placing one spring-loaded arm every 8 to 10 feet. The longest span recommended under any circumstance is 14 feet. The longer the span between the spring-loaded arms, the more challenging it becomes to make the mesh fencing material look visibly uniform when installation is complete. Longer spans lead to more common instances of a slight sag of the material. Keep in mind this is purely for looks and will not affect performance. Secure mounting brackets to fence. Your specific fence configuration will determine the most appropriate method for securing the Purrfect Fence mounting brackets to your fence. In this section, we will review the most common configurations and how fasteners can be used. Before going further, it is important that you get familiar with the 3-ring mounting bracket. There are various features of the bracket that will be utilized depending on the specific configuration of your fence. The opening on the sides, shown in blue, are for accepting U-bolts when required. The screw mounting openings present on the top and bottom are to accept various screws based on fence type. The 3 arm ring mountings are designed to accept the bottom of the spring-loaded arm. These rings can accept one arm in 3 different positions or multiple arms in various positions as needed. Threaded set screw holes are present on the front of each arm mounting ring. These are used to insert provided set screws that hold the spring-loaded arms in place. Secure mounting brackets with vinyl fencing. Start by having a look inside your posts to determine if the posts are hollow or if they have structural backing inside. If there is backing inside, it is typically wood or metal. If your vinyl posts are hollow, which is very common, then you will need to install backing to ensure the mounting brackets have a long-lasting, durable connection. First, mark the height and location of the mounting bracket on your vinyl post. Then, place your bracket against the mounting point and mark the screw openings on the mounting bracket. When securing to vinyl, it is always important to make pilot holes where your fasteners will go to ensure you do not crack the vinyl. In this case, you will make pilot holes at your marked points. Next, you will insert the backing into the vinyl post. Generally, a 2x4 or 4x4 piece of wood is the most straightforward material to use. However, metal can be used as well. While holding the backing in place inside the post, secure the mounting bracket with screws appropriate for wood, usually deck screws, that go through the screw openings on the mounting bracket, through your pilot holes, and into the wood backing. A view inside the vinyl post showing the placement of the wood backing. When complete, the mounting bracket will look similar to the image on the left. You can now replace the cap on your vinyl post to hide any trace of the backing that has been utilized. In some situations on vinyl fencing, it may not be possible to install backing. In these cases, we suggest the use of through bolts with washers instead. This will most commonly be required in corners and on gates for vinyl fencing. For this method, the pilot holes are drilled through both sides of the vinyl panel. This shows the inside, which is the side Purrfect fence will be installed on. This is the back side, which shows that the drill bit will pierce fully through the fence panel. Generally, you will require 2 of each of the hardware pieces shown below per mounting bracket. Next, you will thread the screw through the mounting bracket and through the pilot hole created. Repeat for both upper and lower screw openings on the mounting bracket. Once complete, the back side of the vinyl fence panel should look similar to this. Do not worry if the threaded end sticks out too far, you will cut them down to size on the final step. Next, you will place 1 washer and 1 hex nut on each threaded screw, then hand tighten the hex nuts. Using a screwdriver on the front side and pliers wrench on the back side, tighten without compressing the vinyl material. This step is easier with 2 people. If the threads extend out farther than you would like, you can simply cut the ends off with the use of a bolt cutter, angle grinder, hacksaw, or other appropriate tool. Once complete, the back will look something like this. Secure mounting brackets to chain link fencing. Chain link requires the use of U-bolts to secure mounting brackets to posts. They are wrapped around the post and secured through the pre-made U-bolt openings on the mounting bracket. 2 U-bolts are required per bracket. Once the U-bolt is in place, you will add the washer, then thread on the hex nut. Repeat for the other side of the U-bolt, then hand tighten and align the mounting bracket. Repeat this process for the bottom U-bolt as well. Next, using a wrench or ratchet, tighten all 4 nuts on the U-bolts. The final step is to remove the excess threading from the U-bolt. This can be accomplished with many different methods depending upon the tools you have available. A hacksaw or reciprocating saw is a great option. Other tools that may be appropriate are an angle grinder or oscillating tool. Alternatively, instead of U-bolts, self-tapping metal screws can be used directly into post using the top and bottom screw openings on the mounting bracket. It can be helpful to create pilot holes on posts when using this method. For chain link corners, the mounting bracket will secure directly to the corner post with U-bolts or self-tapping screws. As you can see, there may be other hardware present on the post. In some cases, it may need to be adjusted slightly to allow room for the mounting bracket. Secure mounting brackets with wood fencing. Wood fencing can vary widely in configuration, type of wood, and components. We will address the most common situations. These mounting strategies will likely apply to 99% of wood fence situations. If your wood fence has exposed posts, square or round, Similar to the configuration shown here, then you should ensure your mounting brackets secure to the post directly whenever possible. On each post, approximately 8 to 10 feet apart, you will secure a 3-ring mounting bracket. This example shows two number 10 2-inch outdoor deck screws used in the screw openings on the top and bottom of the bracket. If your wood fence has hidden or flush posts square around, similar to the configuration shown here, then you should ensure your mounting brackets secure to the posts. If they're hidden, then secure through the pickets and into the posts or top rail. As a reminder, the top rail is the structural horizontal piece near the top of the fence. This is generally easy to identify by looking for the nail or screw holes on the pickets in a horizontal pattern along the top of the fence. When securing a top rail or post through a picket, use the top and bottom screw openings on the mounting bracket and secure with a number 10 1.5 inch to 2 inch long outdoor deck screw. Use proper length screws to avoid creating a potential hazard on the opposite side of the fence. If your fence configuration does not allow for easy placement of the mounting bracket, you can rely on the horizontal top rail. This illustration shows a bracket positioned in the corner without access to the corner post. In corners, it is important to get the bracket as close to the corner as possible, as shown. If not present or in the wrong position, you can install your own backing using a 2x4 piece of wood that's about 10 to 12 inches long, shown in green, so that the screw goes through the picket and into the backing on the opposite side. This method can work anywhere that does not have structural backing, including gates, corners, and endpoints. Secure mounting brackets to brick and block. When securing to brick, block, or masonry surfaces, it is preferred that you do so in the mortar joints. So first align the mounting bracket top and bottom screw openings to the vertical mortar joint when possible. Once in position, mark the screw openings, both top and bottom. Next, using a power drill and masonry bit, you will create pilot holes on your marks. The diameter of the drill bit should be compatible with your selected masonry fastener. After your pilot holes are made, position the mounting bracket in place and secure with appropriate masonry fasteners. Generally speaking, number 8 or number 10 fasteners that are 1 to 1.5 inches long will fit a majority of masonry applications. Block walls are handled in a similar way. Best practice is to align the mounting position on the vertical mortar joint. If you are unable to mount on the vertical mortar joint for some reason, it is generally best to secure at least one of the fasteners into a mortar joint, and the other can be secured into the brick or block directly. These tend to be a bit more challenging to pilot hole, but are possible and will hold well. The same principles will apply to concrete walls and fencing. Also to stucco with masonry substrate, which means concrete or block behind the stucco. If you have stucco with wood substrate, which is common, then you would make pilot holes to prevent the stucco from cracking, but wood screws would be used instead. In corners on brick, block, and/or concrete, the mounting bracket is to be positioned as close to the corner as possible, similar to the diagram shown. It is best, as with any mounting bracket on these types of surfaces, to align the screw mounting openings along the mortar joints whenever possible. Secure mounting brackets for aluminum and iron fencing. For aluminum and iron metal fencing with square posts, generally a U-bolt is used to secure the mounting bracket. Once the U-bolt is secured, the unused portion of the threading can be removed as shown in the previous chain link fencing section. Similar to chain link fencing, self-tapping metal screws can be used as an alternative if U-bolts will not suit the situation. For corners on aluminum and iron metal fencing, it is generally best to secure the mounting bracket to the post similar as shown. This will allow for the arm to be positioned as close to the corner as possible, which is the desired outcome. Bracket and arm mounting position for corners. First, it is important to understand the configuration of the mounting bracket. On the bracket, there are 3 mounting positions that will accept the spring-loaded arm. This allows for maximum flexibility to position the arm and to minimize gaps in challenging mounting positions. For most of your mounting brackets, the center mounting position will be used, number 2. However, in corners, gates, and endpoints, you may find that mounting position 1 and 3 are more appropriate. In corners, if you are unable to actually mount the bracket on the corner post or perfectly centered, that is okay. Alternatively, mount the bracket as close to the corner as possible. Then, utilize the mounting position closest to the corner. For this example, it's the number 1 mounting position that would be used for the spring-loaded arm in the next steps. This scenario is common with wood, vinyl, PVC, and brick and block fencing. As shown in this corner diagram, this allows for the arm to be positioned in a very close proximity to the needed location. Also, this allows for flexibility to minimize gaps and accommodate nearly any fence configuration. When the corner post is exposed and there is sufficient space to secure the mounting bracket, it can be mounted as shown. Note that it is acceptable to allow the bracket to overhang the edge slightly if space is limited. From the top view, you can see how this technique puts the spring-loaded arm position very close to the center of the corner. Here is another example where the square post face is able to be secured to. Even though the mounting bracket's not pointing into the enclosure, the flexibility of the 3-ring mounting bracket allows the ring 1 mounting position to be nearly centered on the corner. For round posts and corners, U-bolts are generally the best option, although screws can be used as well. Note that the bracket is centered on the post so the center mounting position 2 can be utilized. This is an example of a vinyl fence corner without sufficient area to mount the bracket on the post. So the mounting bracket is installed as close to the corner as possible and the mounting position closest to the corner is used, in this situation position 1. Bracket and arm mounting position for endpoints. An endpoint is defined as where fencing meets your home or other structure. As shown here, the mounting bracket is positioned to be as close as possible to that structure to limit gaps. Then the 3 mounting position is used for arm placement in this scenario. The endpoint setup is used regardless of the fence type. Shown here is a similar configuration but with chain link. Here is the same setup yet again but on vinyl fencing. Regardless of the fence type, it is important to secure the mounting bracket as close to the endpoint as possible and use the arm mounting position that is closest to the vertical surface to minimize gaps. If you have an endpoint that is non-standard, or any mounting location really, where there is not a space to secure a bracket, then generally it is best to create the space by installing a wood block or blocks similar to what is shown here in green. If your endpoint has a gap of 2 inches or less between the fence and the building, you can use the 3-arm position and angle the arms slightly so that it can be secured to the building in the installation steps to follow. If your endpoint has a gap of more than 2 inches between the fence and the building, then you will need to fill that gap with wood or other material that allows for the mounting bracket to secure properly. Then you can use the 3-arm position for this example. Bracket and arm mounting position for offset endpoints. Some fencing configurations end near or on the corner of your home or other building. These situations will require some special care to ensure they don't allow for lateral escapes. To fully secure this endpoint, a second spring-loaded arm is used against the building. If your existing fence is set back off the corner as shown, you can still accommodate this situation by using the configuration shown in blue. This option works for setbacks that are 2 to 12 inches. In situations where the fence is set back 12 to 21 inches, a slightly more complex configuration is recommended. If the fence setback is 22 inches or more, then the spring-loaded arm extends past the edge slightly without issue. Bracket and arm mounting position for gates. Due to the wide variety of gate configurations, this video will review the primary methods for securing the Purrfect fence system to gates in various common scenarios. For gates that swing into the enclosure area. For inward swinging gates, you will first identify the latch side of the gate. This is where you will secure the mounting bracket. Regardless of fence type, mounting brackets should be secured with one on the gate and one on the latch post. The mounting brackets should be positioned so they are as close together as possible so that when the arms are inserted, the gap between arm tips should be 2 inches or less. This allows the gate to open and close freely when needed. When shut, any gaps will be small enough that they will not allow for escapes. Here is an example with polymesh already installed that shows how this should operate. Shown here is a good example of how the 3-ring mounting brackets are used on the latch side of the gate to minimize the gap between them. For gates that swing out of the enclosure area. For outward swinging gates, they can be configured as shown. Note that the mounting brackets and the spring-loaded arms on the gates are mounted slightly higher, approximately 1.5 to 2 inches. This is so there is ample space for the arms to swing over each other. As shown, the arms do not come in contact with each other but are less than 2 inches apart to prevent large gaps. Also of note is how blocks of wood were installed to ensure there was a solid and secure mounting surface, which also brought the mounting brackets to be aligned when the gate was closed. Gate header, an alternative method for all gates. Certain situations may exist with the location of your gate that make using the previously explained methods difficult or impossible. Examples include any time the spring-loaded arms may restrict the gate from opening fully, such as when the gate is in a narrow corridor, next to a building, and in similar situations. Also, if the gate is configured in such a way that makes securing mounting brackets difficult, then this method is preferred. This method relies on a piece of wood or other structural material across the top of the gate opening. It is connected to posts on either side of the gate, but not the gate itself. Polymesh connects to this header and not the gate, which allows the gate to open and close unhindered. This has the added benefit of requiring less hardware than the other methods. However, it does limit overhead clearance for those who may be taller in height. Bottom view, top view. If you feel you have a situation that is not addressed in this video with your gates or fencing, you're always welcome to submit photos of the area to help@purrfectfence.com. In addition, include an explanation of the issue and we will gladly help you overcome the challenge. Secure spring-loaded arms into mounting brackets. This is a spring-loaded cat arm. The spring-loaded arm inserts into one of the 3 mounting positions on the mounting bracket. Any mounting position can be used on the mounting bracket. Generally, the 2 position is used most commonly. 1 and 3 are used primarily on gates, in and on corners, and when addressing unique situations. Once the spring-loaded arm is set in the desired mounting position, secure the arm in place using a set screw. A hex wrench is included to assist with this. Tighten the set screw until the arm is held securely in place. The diagram shows a fence line with various angles and turns. Spring-loaded arms are primarily configured to be perpendicular to the fence line. For inside corners and turns, they are to have the arms centered to split the angle. Starting at the bottom left, if we zoom in, we can consider the mounting angles of the spring-loaded arms more carefully. Where the fence meets your home or building is called an endpoint. As the video addressed earlier, it is important to get the mounting bracket as close to the building as possible. Then insert the spring-loaded arm in the mounting position closest to the building. Where the fence ends at a building, the arm should be secured to the building by strapping the non-pivoting part of the arm just below the spring joint to the building using screws, which are not included, and the included straps, shown to the left. This holds the spring-loaded arm in place for the tension that is created when the fencing material is installed. This is an inside corner that is 90 degrees. The mounting bracket is secured in the corner as close as possible. Then the spring-loaded arm is inserted in the mounting position closest to the corner, and the arm is turned to split the angle. In this case, that is a 45-degree angle. This is a standard mounting where the spring-loaded arm extends 90 degrees perpendicular to the fence line. Moving along the fence line, we encounter 2 outside corners. Let's zoom in and take a closer look. Here is an outside corner that measures approximately 225 degrees. In situations where the angle is more than 180 degrees, or flat, 2 spring-loaded arms are used perpendicular to the fence to ensure the polymesh fencing material can work around these turns appropriately, and that the arm will still activate. Often a single mounting bracket can be used for these situations with more than 1 spring-loaded arm in a single mounting bracket. Here is an outside corner that measures approximately 270 degrees. Similar to the previous example, 2 spring-loaded arms are used perpendicular to the fence line to ensure the polymesh fencing material can work around these turns appropriately and that the arms will still activate. Moving along the fence line again, we encounter a sharp inside corner. Let's zoom in and take a closer look. If you have a sharp corner in your yard that measures less than 80 degrees, it is important that you configure the corner uniquely. Using just 1 mounting bracket and spring-loaded arm in the corner will generally restrict arm function. Instead, 2 mounting brackets and 2 spring-loaded arms are positioned 2 to 3 feet offset the corner. When the fencing material is installed, shown in green, this will allow the arms to function appropriately. Moving along the fence line again, we encounter a wider inside corner. Let's zoom in and take a closer look. This area shows an inside corner that is uncommon. It measures more than 90 degrees but less than 180 degrees. In these situations, a single spring-loaded arm and mounting bracket are used. The spring-loaded arm is positioned to split the angle as shown. Attach mesh fencing material. Securing the polymesh fencing material to your spring-loaded arms that are installed on your fencing uses the same principles regardless of the material your fence is constructed from. The diagrams and videos to follow regarding this installation step will depict many different fence types. However, the focus should be on how the polymesh material is installed, and the actual existing fence type is not relevant for this step. Referencing this top view of an existing fence in a backyard, the best area to start or end the section of polymesh fencing is at the endpoints or corners. When installing polymesh, it is important to understand where the zip ties are to be secured. The arrows show the points where ties are required, one at the tip of the arm through the pre-made hole, then one on each side of each bend in the arm. This is a zip tie. Unroll the fence, Lift it and hang it on the top edge of the fence from the tips of the arms with the included zip ties. Do not try to pull it overly tight between the arms. Start by looping a zip tie on the top corner of the poly mesh and through the pre-made opening on the spring-loaded arm. Repeat this step on each spring-loaded arm in the section. Now you have the poly mesh fence secured to the tips of all the spring-loaded arms in the section, and it should look similar to this. From a bird's eye view, as you work your way to corners, it is important to keep the poly mesh uniformly straight end to end. The orange line shows this concept. Notice how the spring-loaded arm in the corner does not reach as far due to it being angled in the corner. We accommodate the offset of the corner arm by keeping the poly mesh straight and leaving 4 squares of material extending past the arm in the corner. Then cut the material straight vertically a few squares longer than necessary to cover the entire section. When moving to the next steps of polymesh installation, it is important that you start in the middle to get the best visible results. In this scenario, there are 2 middle spring-loaded arms and you can start on either one. For longer sections of more than 4 spring-loaded arms, it is best to break up this step into mini sections that include 3 to 4 arms each. Note that does not mean you have to cut the poly mesh in the middle. Instead, it means you will focus on fully securing mesh to the arms in mini sections. Here you see an actual installation of poly mesh. Notice how ties are secured on either side of the bends in the arm. Once one arm is complete, then you move out from the middle to the right or left. This example is with our existing fence conversion system that includes a vertical extension. However, installing the poly mesh is the same on both systems. In this example, the fence will turn here and go around a tree with our freestanding fencing system. Notice how when the corner is reached, there is a bit of excess mesh causing it to buckle and look wavy. This is easily solved by cutting away the zip tie at the tip of the arm and re-securing a new zip tie to smooth out the contour. Securing poly mesh for inside corners. Securing the poly mesh in the corner is similar to the rest of the installation. The key difference is the arm is turned and mounted in the center of the corners to split the angle. So the spring-loaded arm will not extend outward from the fence as far in corners. To compensate for this, the poly mesh is secured approximately 4 squares down from the tip of the spring-loaded arm. Then the rest of the arm is secured with zip ties as normal. Once secure, the excess poly mesh can be trimmed away. The top view diagram shows how the poly mesh is cut and notched in a specific pattern. Once you have created the cutout pattern at the top, you can then trim the poly mesh along the spring-loaded arm as shown. When complete, it should look similar to this. With the corner secured on the previous section, you can now begin a new section. As before, first step is to secure the poly mesh to the tips of the arms on the new section. Leave enough excess in the corner to reach the adjacent fence line. Remember that in 90-degree corners, you should leave 4 squares of mesh before securing to the tip of the arm. Note that corners that are larger than 90 degrees, which are uncommon, may not require 4 squares of excess material at the top. Instead, it likely will be 1 to 3 squares depending on how large the angle is. Once the section is secured to the spring-loaded arms along the middle of the span, you can then return to the corner to secure the poly mesh to the arm and complete the corner. Additional ties can be used as needed. Next, you can trim away the excess poly mesh, ensuring that you do not over-trim away material that may leave gaps. The trim pattern you will follow is similar to the other side of the corner. The area above the tip of the spring-loaded arm will have overlapping flaps of poly mesh. Next, you will secure the overlapping pieces in the top with zip ties. 4 to 5 ties is generally sufficient. Lastly, cut away the tabs and the zip ties. Keep in mind this can be done at any time. One side of corner complete. From the top, the opposite side started. It may not look visually appealing. However, once trimmed and fully zip tied, it should take shape. The desired outcome is similar to the following examples. Securing poly mesh for outside corners. In this zoomed-in overhead view of an outside fence corner, a single 3-ring mounting bracket can be utilized with 2 arms secured as shown. The arms are positioned perpendicular, at a right angle, to the respective fence lines. The result allows for the poly mesh to dead end into the outside corner as shown. The last step is to cut a wedge-shaped piece of poly mesh to fit in the remaining opening. This small wedge piece of poly mesh is shown here secured in an outside corner. This step can be completed before or after the adjacent sides have poly mesh secured. Securing poly mesh around gates. Generally, there are no specific special considerations unique to gates when securing poly mesh. The only important aspect is to be sure to trim cut the mesh as needed to allow the gate to open and close freely. Addressing sloping fence configurations. If your fence line is positioned on an incline or decline, Then configuration is much the same as a flat yard. The important aspect is the placement of the spring-loaded arm height. The key is to ensure that the top of the spring-loaded arm is 6 feet or more from any surface a cat could leap from. Here is an example of how the configuration is recommended for staggered height fencing on declines and inclines. Shown here is an example of how the polymesh fencing material is to be installed. Since the spring-loaded arms are on one continuous plane, a single span of polymesh can be used. Situations where the fence line moves from flat to incline or decline, or from incline to decline, can require more attention but is handled in much the same manner. In some cases, if the change isn't abrupt enough in decline or incline, it may require extending the height to ensure the cats cannot exploit the change in height, since leaping diagonally could be less than 6 feet for steep declines. Extension components offered separately if needed. Shown here is an example of how the configuration is recommended for an abrupt change in the slope of a fence line. Shown here is an example of how the polymesh fencing material is to be installed. Since the slope changes, it is important that this be addressed with 2 separate pieces of polymesh. If you have gaps between the top of your existing fence and the polymesh when fully installed, it is important that you use additional polymesh to patch the gaps as shaded in red in the diagram. Use zip ties to secure the mesh together as needed. Tweak polymesh to minimize visual imperfections. During the previous steps process of securing polymesh, you may find waviness, bubbles, sagging, twisting, or other visual imperfections in the installed polymesh. This is typical and expected. Prior to moving to the next installation step is the best time to make adjustments to improve the visual appearance as needed. This example depicts our freestanding fencing system. However, the process for fine-tuning the polymesh is the same as with our existing fence conversion system. In this example, a hog wringer tool is used. However, zip ties serve the same purpose. The squares of polymesh are pinched together by hand. The installer is looking at the imperfections down the span to see the impact this has. When satisfied with the result, the square of polymesh is pinched permanently with a zip tie along the arm. This process is repeated down each arm for the entire enclosure as needed. Performing this along the spring-loaded arm is ideal to easily hide these adjustments. However, they can technically be performed anywhere along the span. Securing bottom of polymesh to existing fence. The next step of the installation is securing the polymesh along the bottom where the polymesh meets the existing fencing. There are many ways to accomplish this task. Though the method for securing will vary, the intent is the same: prevent cats from slipping underneath the polymesh. It should be secured sufficiently so no gap can be created that is 2 inches or wider. The instructions to follow will show many of the more common methods. However, you are free to use your best judgment to ensure no gaps or openings exist that could allow for a cat to squeeze through. Securing the bottom for wood. On wood fencing, a staple gun with galvanized or stainless steel staples, which are not included, is recommended. A staple every 4 to 5 inches will be sufficient in most situations. If you have posts that are exposed and extend past the fencing pickets or panels, it may require that you split the polymesh vertically at the post, securing the flaps on either side with staples as shown. Securing the bottom for brick, block, and concrete. For masonry surfaces, one option is using wood strips that are secured to the surface first. Then the polymesh is secured to the wood strips using staples as shown a moment ago. Alternatively, a nylon strapping accessory sold separately can be secured to the masonry surface. Then the polymesh is secured to the nylon strapping with ties. The nylon strapping can also be weaved into the polymesh before securing it to the existing fence. This is much more tedious but can be more visually appealing. Securing the bottom for chain link or metal. For metal fencing, zip ties are used to secure the polymesh to the fence. One tie every 3 to 5 inches is recommended. Securing the bottom for vinyl and PVC. For vinyl and PVC fence, nylon strapping, sold separately, is the preferred method. As shown a moment ago, the nylon strapping can be weaved into the polymesh and secured to the fence. Alternatively, the nylon strapping can be secured independently of the polymesh, then once in place can be secured to the polymesh with zip ties. Trim away excess polymesh and ties. For the best visual appearance and overall durability, we recommend trimming away the zip tie tabs. Also, we suggest trimming polymesh that drops below the point where it is secured to the existing fence. It is important to be mindful of the material that is cut away so that no gaps are created that may allow for escapes. The step is best to perform after the polymesh is fully secured to your existing fence. Questions? If you have encountered an issue not addressed in this video or provided written instructions, please reach out to us with a photo or photos of the issue and a description of the problem. You can reach us at help@purrfectfence.com. We are very happy to assist you. Your installation is now complete. We will show a series of videos and photos of completed installations for reference.